Hello friends, this is Odds, the footage speaks for itself, and today we're going to be talking about all of the killers in Dead by Daylight, from Trapper to Wesker, and we'll briefly discuss whether or not they're in a healthy spot and what changes I would suggest to make them a bit better, more in line with the rest, more fun, more fair for everyone, not just the people that playing them, but also the people playing against them. We did this in the past a long time ago, and that's a nice memory trip lane if you want to take it. And many of the changes that we suggested back then have already been implemented in the game, like Pick having semi-fixed RNG. So I'm hoping that this will answer many people's questions and also hopefully guide the devs towards a better, brighter future for the DPD killer cast. My goals with these changes are very simple. I want killers to be a bit more towards the middle, not have killers that are so much better than everyone else that they stand out tremendously, and not have killers that are so weak that it feels really bad to play them. I also wish for add-ons to be impactful but never feel like any of them is necessary. Right now there are killers that absolutely need one or two add-ons to almost feel playable, and that should never be the case. And I also want killers to play in a game in a way that is fun and not have powers that encourage or heavily incentivize lame gameplay, like, for example, just camping outright. So I want killer powers to let them be free to do whatever they want and not just lock them into playing in some really unfun ways. So we have the whole killer cast right here, and what we're gonna do is give them some tags so that you can see what is their main issue. So for some of them, it's just add-ons that are the problem. Some of them are mostly just fine. Some of them have weak chase powers and that bottlenecks everything else. And a few of them have problematic core issues that need to be addressed first and foremost. I also have given them secondary issues if you want to take a second, but don't worry, we're now going to go into each of them individually, starting with Trapper, of course. And that should help a little bit in knowing exactly what's wrong with each. I will go out of my way to talk about each, and you can find in the description the timestamps if you want to skip to any killer in particular. So starting with Trapper, the fact that his power needs to be picked up from the ground and this takes time and he has no mobility, it just means that he's never going to be a top tier killer, almost no matter what we do to him. If we accept this fact and we are just happy to make him a little bit better than he is right now, there are many changes that could be more than welcome. The first one, he cannot be so slow at picking up his own power. In large maps where traps can spawn in hills and behind obstacles and on edges of the map, picking up his power slows down Trapper significantly. Even at higher MMR, his kill rate is easily the lowest in the game. This needs to be changed. My best idea would be to either make all traps spawn in the center, which is where Trapper travels through the most and it's easy to pick them up, or better yet, when you open a locker and there's no survivor inside, your furthest trap that is disarmed immediately disintegrates and you pick it up from the locker. This would mean that the Trapper would be a bit like Huntress or Trickster, where he can pick up his power from lockers if it's not convenient for him to pick it up. And this would also allow you to set up traps during chase more effectively, while also being able to choose where to reload so that the furthest trap that is no longer useful to you because it's so far and it's been disarmed, that trap now comes back to you. That would incentivize Trapper to be a bit more active around moving around the map and moving around rather than just having to set up in just one spot. I also think that traps need to be more punishing. At the moment, you can 99 yourself as a survivor and be injured, 99 your heal, and then step on a trap, and then come out of the trap and then fully heal in half a second. This is absurd. You can also come out of a trap and be fully healed by adrenaline. This should never happen. Stepping on a trap should automatically give you the lengthened jaws effect of making you deep wounded. And arguably, in my opinion, some people might disagree, if you're already injured, it should immobilize you, like the honing stone for injured people. That means that healthy survivors have to look out for traps because they'll be deep wounded, and injured survivors have to look out for traps because they'll be stuck without help, or at least it will take longer or something like that. I think that would make traps a lot scarier. The problem with this, by the way, is that even if traps are scarier, they're still very easy to avoid. On top of teams calling you out and maps detecting traps, which should totally go away, there is very little grass. Newer maps and rework maps have absolutely no good grass anywhere. Some of the more logical spots where you could place traps are completely bare. And that means that you as a Trapper don't really have much to do. Other than, like, you don't have any real chase power other than your traps, right? And if they know about them, they lose a bit of effectiveness. And thus, the most effective thing a trapper can do is pretty much just go to basement, go to shack, and then trap the ever-loving F out of every exit and play into the whole lockdown trapper, which is very nasty. You hook a guy on the basement, trap everything, and survivors can do almost nothing. This kind of playstyle should be less encouraged. Maps should have wider doors. Maybe shack could have the non-pallet door extended across all maps so that this playstyle is less effective, but in return all of these buffs to trapper and some chase buffs could be nice. It would be really nice if every time someone steps on a trap you could get a small speed boost to get to them or help tie up another chase that you're currently in. Those things would be nice and would make trapper a little bit more bearable than he is right now. Moving on, we have Wraith, and believe it or not, Wraith is mostly fine. Think about every bad match you've recently had with Wraith. What are the issues? It's almost never his own fault. Bad Wraith matches are typically horrible medkits, which is its own issue, horrible maps, which is its own issue, or sometimes, you know, some survivors body blocking, having good teamwork, using flashlights well, which you can get better at countering. For the most part, Wraith, in my opinion, is completely okay, and if the maps, items, and everything else around the game is reworked, he will sit pretty fine in the meta. Some of his add-ons are a little bit redundant. For example, having 3 different speed add-ons and 3 different rarities, 3 Swift Hunt add-ons for Uncloak and Speed at 3 different rarities. Some of these add-ons could be merged, and some of the add-ons rarities could be swapped around, and they could fill some add-ons like that. And that could be about it. For beginner raids, it wouldn't be too crazy if his very punishing stun times were reduced. Right now, if the Wraith is stunned while cloaked, he has a much longer stun, much longer than usual. It could be a little bit less, and it could also be a little bit less when you get burned from a flashlight. Enough to give them a bit of time, but not enough to make it so punishing when new players are playing Wraith. You do that, and I think the skill is, for the most part, just a-okay. Hillbilly, on the other hand, needs a few more changes, but not too many. Believe it or not, he's still a solid killer, and his main issue is the fact that his best add-ons got butchered, and he's very difficult to play in some of the current maps. I would say, number one thing. Right now, he is not a very camp friendly killer. Most people that want to camp hooks and go out of the way to camp will typically play Cannibal instead, because he's even easier and more powerful at camping. But there's nothing stopping this killer from just camping a person, and it is impossible to unhook against a camping Hillbilly. Literally impossible. In fact, the person doing the unhook will go down, and you'll pretty much have to give up 2 fully healed people going down in order to get one person out of the hook. I think this could change. I think they could use the overheat as a deterrent. If you chainsaw a survivor that is currently doing the unhooking animation, your chainsaw immediately overheats, and that means that now you have to chase the person of the hook or the other people going for the unhook if they failed without your chainsaw for about 20 seconds. I think that would be very reasonable. It would 99% of the time not affect normal Hillbilly stuff, but it would help a little bit if survivors in the endgame actually want to counter his chainsaw. After that tiny nerf, everything else would be just buffs. When he bumps into an obstacle, which is something that happens to beginners a lot and to people that are trying to be aggressive and experiment with the chainsaw, he has a 3-ish second cooldown, I believe, which is very punishing, and you're completely locked in place. It feels awful. I think this bump stun should be reduced significantly, and maybe the add-ons that affected could be removed or altered. I also think it wouldn't be crazy if his chainsaw speed while holding his chainsaw, like the movement speed, was 1 or maybe 2% higher. 1% could be safe. That would help so much around so many awful loops, and it would make his engraving a little bit more powerful, and playing without engravings feel less awful as well. I don't think it would be crazy at all. And the biggest change that he probably needs is his add-ons. Charge add-ons don't need the crazy downsides that they have right now. They could nerf this add-on a little bit and make it have no downsides, and it would be fine because it would be only 1. They could introduce the cooldown add-ons that they removed, just make 1 so it can't be stacked with anything else. They could add a lot more add-ons that are useful and they're not as gimmicky as the as the Black Grease, which requires you to be blinded, or the stealth-oriented Eerie Brick, which only works in some very open outdoor maps. They could remove some of these gimmicky add-ons that almost no one enjoys and make more straightforward add-ons, and I think he would benefit from that. After that, I think he would be in a really solid spot. Next up is Nurse. Now, some people believe that Nurse is completely irredeemable. She does have a power that in many ways breaks the game. She ignores pallets, she ignores conventional loops and structures, she ignores windows, she can just blink through anything, hit you anywhere, and she breaks the rules of chase. This is true. If you want to 100% accept that this is a problem, you could make her a bit like Oni or Myers, where she doesn't have a real power, and she needs to chase normally, and when she picks up blood or whatever, then she gets a timed power like she has right now, so that she's only strong in bursts. That would be one way to do it, and I've made a video detailing that in more detail and what I think is the problem, but I don't think they need to do that. Current Nurse is not that bad, really. Even though she does ignore the normal chase mechanics, she does bring her own chase mechanics. Against Nurse, yes, you can use pallets normally, but you can use walls and obstacles and anything that breaks line of sight to make her difficult to make her have a difficult time tracking you. And because she's slower when she walks normally, this works really well even on the edges of the map. So this is fine. I think they could keep that. As I say in the final point here, the only thing they need to really do is make sure that all maps are consistent when it comes to line of sight. You cannot have maps that have walls on the edges and loops that are very tall, and then maps that are all completely made of glass or are all super open. When they design maps, they need to put edges of the map with long Z walls and lots of line of blockers so that Nurse is not too easy to play in open maps. But if they do that, then Nurse can stay the way she is. Some things that would really help. Being stunned should reset your charges. Right now, stunning a pallet stunning a Nurse is almost a bad idea because she doesn't need to go through 2 fatigues, and she can immediately, it's very risky to play around pallets or use head-on or anything like that. And if you hit her with Decisive, she will catch you in literally 2 seconds, maybe less. So all kinds of stuns, other than, breaking free, all kinds of stuns should reset her charges so that there is a meaningful counterplay and she actually has to worry a little bit about those and not get to use her power for just a few seconds. I think that would help a lot. Another thing that is very popular that the developers might eventually implement is make her blink attacks special attacks. Right now, Nurse can use perks like Starstruck, Hunt the Ground, Know It with her power, Teleport and Hit You, and these are extremely oppressive on her, to the point of being really difficult to stop and almost game-breaking in some instances. If they made her post-blink attack a special attack, these perks wouldn't work. Another idea is that they could give her a very small terror radius, like Huntress, maybe 20 meters, and then give her a lullaby. So you can hear her coming, but she doesn't afflict Starstruck and other problematic status effects with such terror radius. That could also be an idea, but maybe the special attack on the M2s would be just better. And the other thing that needs to be addressed is the fact that her power is very strong, very strong. Killers like Wesker that have come out recently that have a strong power, they don't have add-ons to immediately increase the cooldown or immediately increase. They have very few add-ons, and these add-ons have conditions, or they have tiny effects, tiny effects. So I think Nurse should be in there as well. The 2 range add-ons should not exist. That is Kamenov's and where is it? And Heavy Panting. These should be merged into one 20% add-on, and it should come with some kind of condition. If they don't want to nerf it to make it very small, it should come with some kind of condition. So maybe after a survivor heals, since it's a Nurse and she has that gimmick, after a survivor heals, you have longer range for the next 60 seconds or 30 seconds. And recharge could be similar as well. They could make it one add-on, and when a survivor becomes injured, then you get recovery for the next 20 or 30 seconds, but not any other time, so that Nurse cannot be oppressive from the get-go on all situations. And yes, they would need to rework and refill some of the add-on slots. Add-ons such as the Pinecone that just helps with recovery and just helps with overall missing attacks or doing extra. Those are fine. Those are for the most part fine. They help beginners the most, and they're not oppressive by themselves. So those you could totally keep. And I think she would be still maybe the strongest, but definitely not as ridiculous, and definitely not as far from the rest of the cast. Next up is Huntress, and Huntress, in my opinion, is perhaps one of the closest examples of a perfect killer that we have. She's easy to pick up because her power is simple, but very difficult to master because there's a lot of nuance to her. Her add-ons, for the most part, are useful at any variety and scale up pretty well, and are, for the most part, very reasonable. She has weaknesses and strengths and blah, blah, blah. For the most part, you know, she's doing good. The only things that I believe are a bit unfortunate. She's very good at camping with some add-ons. With the iridescent head, there's literally no way to rescue safely, which, you know, could be altered, make them not work around hooks or whatever. But then again, she only gets one hatchet, so I guess team efforts could occur. The Oak Haft and the other recovery add-on have a similar effect. This makes her very, very machine gun-like, and it's very difficult to rescue against these. I don't know if that's a problem, honestly. I guess eventually she would run out of hatchets, even though she can have 7. I don't know if she should reload slower, if she reloads multiple times or on a hook. I don't know what exactly they could do. Maybe it's not a big deal. But yeah. As for any buffs, you could make the Soldier's Putty a brown add-on or even base kit to make it easier for her to move around, make it easier for beginners to move around and deal with maps that have bad locker placements, which are unfortunately still a thing every now and then. And then overall, I think Huntress is very fine. I would change very, very little. Maybe some cute suggestions from you guys would change my mind, but the way I see it, she's very close to being just fine. Next up is Myers. Myers has several issues. Most come from his add-ons, some come from the fact that he doesn't have really much in chase, and also some problematic aspects to his kit. The problematic aspect to his kit, number 1, is the fact that his tier 1 is very slow. The player playing Michael should have a choice of being stealthy, but he should be able to come out of stealth as soon as he wants. Right now, with Myers, you are in this very awkward situation where you need to chase a survivor for a few seconds before you can even think of hitting them. You don't want to grab them, you're not going to get away with it, and you're not going to get a hit. Like, you want to get out, and your start is very slow, and I think this is bad. His tier 1 should be almost immediate, and it should not be affected by add-ons. His tier 3 could be a bit more thematic. It could make you break walls much quicker. It could make you kick pallets a little bit sooner. It could give you a mini base kit enduring. The tier 3 could be a bit more oppressive without being overtuned. It could be something small, like I just mentioned. He outly vaults a little bit quicker, and has other gimmicks like the longer lunge. They could give him a bit more, and that would be nice. I also think that his stalking over distance is awful. This is particularly true with the tier 1 that we have right now. He basically, you stalk a lot from close up, but very little from afar. It wouldn't be crazy at all if your distance stalking was a little bit better, if the drop down wasn't quite as dramatic. And other than that, he would be mostly fine. He's a killer that doesn't have a lot in chase or whatever, but he has a small terror radius and some other gimmicks. The problems, of course, come with add-ons. If you bring the Tombstone piece, you can literally kill people at 4 gens with no hooks, no nothing. These add-ons need to be reworked so that they are a bit more in line with the game. They are basically like the old Morris that I'm sure you all remember, and those had to go because they were stupid. So yeah, rework the Tombstone piece so it's not as powerful as it is. Rework the Tombstone so that you can use it on people in lockers. It makes zero sense that people can go in lockers to avoid this. And then, you know, change anything else that needs to be changed. And also, have a look at the other add-ons. It makes no sense that the lock of hair is worse objectively than the hair bow, which is the same type of add-on but in lower rarity. It makes zero sense that the glass fragment is a yellow. This is awful. Like, some of these add-ons could use a little change. Like the tacky earrings, these are extremely outdated add-ons. Some of these add-ons could get a bit of a change, but without going too much into detail, change the add-ons and he's a lot better. Next up is Hag. I'm of the opinion that Hag needs a tiny bit of a rework because she's in a very awkward spot right now where she's not good enough for a beginner to do amazingly well with. Because she needs to set up a lot of traps and she's not good in direct chase. But very advanced players will use the best items, the best strategies, and will harass her, so that setting up is very difficult. So Hack has this problem where at low levels she's hard and at high levels she's frustrating. I do think that if we just slightly tune her to be a bit more chase oriented, that would help both sides. If survivors harass you at higher levels, you're now a little bit faster and you can deal with normal chase a little bit better. You're not as useless. And if beginners play Hack and they don't set up a lot of traps, that's okay because they are a little bit better in chase. Increasing her terror radius slightly and increasing her movement speed slightly, I think would help a ton. You could, to compensate for this, a few changes would need to happen, I think. Number one is that flashlights would no longer remove her traps. You would no longer need a flashlight to harass them. You now could just crouch, get to the center of the triangle, and sit there for a second, half a second, whatever, to make the trap disappear. It's like basically you Goomba, you stomp on it after sitting on it for a little while. If you do that, the trap disappears. This would make it harder for the Hack to just camp hooks. It would make it easier for survivors without items to deal with her compared to survivor with items, which is already really strong against Hack. And I think it would help a little bit. It could also not be a crazy idea to increase the distance, the minimum distance between traps a little bit. And also reconsider some add-ons. Some of her add-ons right now are weird or bugged or not working very well. Add-ons like, for example, the Rusty Shackles are really strong and probably should be an eerie and probably should have some kind of downside. Yeah, reconsider the add-ons a little bit and do these changes. And it shouldn't be that big. I think it would help a little bit, maybe make her a little bit more popular. Though I've heard many other intricate ideas that go more in depth as to what I would change. I think you could start with this. Next up is Doctor. And honestly, Doctor, considering he's very, very wide base kit, I think for the most part he's fine. The one thing that does bother me is the fact that his chase is very reliant on this add-on called Discipline. Discipline essentially makes the cooldown of shocking a survivor or the actual speed of shocking a survivor shorter. It takes 1 second after you shock them for them to scream, and this shaves 0.3 seconds, and then the other discipline shaves 0.2 seconds, and then the other discipline, which is right here, shaves 0.1. I think these add-ons are problematic because without these add-ons, it feels like Doctor is underwhelming, especially with ping being wild as it often is. It feels really, really bad. You can shock a survivor, watch them scream, and half a second later, they vault a window because on their screen, they already have press space. It's very frustrating. I feel like this part of balance should not be down to add-ons. So take the middle add-on, the green add-on, make that base kit, and then take Discipline and rework it into doing something else. So that Doctor is a little bit better base kit, but not as good as if he had two of these add-ons stacked together. We all have heard about people that have sensorial overwhelming issues. Like they get very dizzy and get headaches when they see all the noise and visual effects of madness. So it would be nice if they change that, not for balance, but for accessibility. And yeah, other than that, he doesn't have many issues in my opinion. His add-ons, some of them are a little bit complex. No one ever in the history of anywhere, anytime has used the scrap tape for anything. They honestly could just do away with the nostalgia and remove and rework some of these add-ons and it would be fine. And yeah, I'm mostly okay with Doctor. When you consider his synergies, he's a killer. That's all right for the most part. And most of the problems you would think Doctor has come more from maps and items than Doctor himself. Next up is Cannibal. Cannibal is easily the best camper in the game, so much so that many people that want to camp, that want to play in a I'm gonna sit here until you die playstyle, just flock over and pick Cannibal overwhelmingly. I think this could be fixed. Make a system where if he's been around the hook, let's say 60 meters, whatever, for more than whatever time, 5-10 seconds, whatever, these can be adjusted, his charges begin to deplete. So if you go to the hook for a little bit, you can still use your chainsaw, but you cannot stay there and then use your chainsaw and then hit a survivor 2 times with it. The problem with Cannibal right now is that not only is he good at camping, he's also really good at tunneling. If a survivor gets unhooked, unless you have the best sprint burst in the world, you will take 1 hit with base kit endurance and then you will be hit again if he has good add-ons, even if not sometimes. So yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem, that he can camp and tunnel so well. And then he's sometimes hard-pressed to actually down people otherwise. So yeah, please make him lose that, and he would be a bit more enjoyable to play against. Now, one problem with Cannibal is that some of his add-ons do a lot, and it's really hard to do away with them. For example, the chili gives him half a second per charge, which translates to an obnoxiously large distance. And the other chili is not quite as good, but it's still really, really nice. You go so far with these add-ons and so comparatively short without them. I do think they should probably remove one of these add-ons or make it do something else, or nerf both of these add-ons and make part of these add-ons base kit, so that the difference between chili and non-chili is not as great. They could do a similar thing with beast marks, but, you know, I'm not going to get there. That's a bit complex. Some of these add-ons are currently bugged, like the Carburetor Tuning Guide. And obviously, this should be addressed. No hard feelings about that. And some of them are also kind of useless. The grease allows you to hold your chainsaw for longer without overheating, quote unquote. And it's completely useless. They can make these add-ons have unique, fun effects. Like, for example, if you break a pallet, you recover faster, whatever it might be. They could give them some unique, interesting effects. They could also take the shop lubricant, which is an add-on that right now is super hard to use, and give it an actual in-game. If you don't see what it does, this add-on essentially hides people if you down them, but it doesn't tell you. They could give it an on-screen indication of when it's active, since we know that they can do that right now. So yeah, some more add-on changes, and for the most part, he would be okay. And one thing that I almost forgot to mention, there are many maps where the chainsaw gets stuck on nothing at all. Perhaps the latest map, or one of the latest maps, technically, the Garden of Joy is a great example. In the Garden of Joy, survivors can run you around the little red bushes, and you cannot be anywhere close, or his chainsaw hits little trees, little obstacles. That stuff is extremely annoying. They should have a bit more care in each map to avoid these things and patch them out a bit better than they have in the past. And then for the most part, Cannibal would be fine. Actually, pretty strong killer. Next up, Freddy. I don't like the fact that teleporting gives a sound cue. Now, luckily for you, most survivors are a bit stupid and they don't notice it in chase. But when you try to teleport in chase or try to teleport in some sneaky way, survivors that pay attention hear a little whooshing sound, which kills any kind of stealth play or surprising teleport that you could do. I don't like that. They should remove that, or maybe make it a downside to some other add-on. And another thing that should 100% happen is that when you teleport to a generator, you should see a white aura showing you the direction that you're going to be looking at so that you can mentally prepare. Right now, most gens have unpredictable, very difficult to know locations that you're going to come out. Sometimes it's not very consistent. So when you teleport, you typically go, where am I? And it's really hard to teleport naturally in the current state of the game. Especially for beginners, I imagine it must be very confusing. So if you saw a preview of where you're looking, that will make it a little bit easier. Cannibal. Nightmare also has some of the worst add-ons in the game. Add-ons that do useful things, like for example, the Nancy's Masterpiece, have extremely tiny effects that only save you 1 second or 2 seconds at absolute best. Very bad add-on. Add-ons that have weird effects like hemorrhage to healthy survivors. Obviously the pallets are not extremely strong, but that's okay. That's more like a playstyle. That's fine. You can keep the pallet ones. But yeah, some of these add-ons need massive reconsiderations, buffs and tweaks and reworks all along. Another thing that's pretty annoying about this killer is the fact that he has one add-on that is extremely good, called the Paintbrush. It's a red add-on that makes everyone start asleep and they cannot wake up unless, with missed skill checks. And this is a problem. That add-on makes it really, really powerful. to run it with blue dress and the green dress, and these are not good without it. That add-on should be split in two, along with other add-on buffs. And in order for him to actually have a incentive to chase people, people that are currently in chase should fall asleep faster. That's it. You do those things and Freddy would not be much more of a noob stomper, and he would actually work much better in many instances. You would be encouraged to chase someone at the start of the game, get rid of a few pallets, and that person falls asleep faster so that you can begin to use your power against them. That would be good, and you wouldn't need the red paintbrush in order to, have a chase power at all. More people asleep means that you recover your power faster, you can teleport around more, and so on. These little changes, I think, would keep him relatively tame, not super oppressive, but also a bit more fun and more skill-based and more beginner-friendly too for the teleports. That's my thoughts on Freddy. Next up is Pig, and Pig is a killer that does really, really well because she has many sneaky ways to slow down the game, which makes her very oppressive in some instances, and especially against lower tier survivors. But then again, her chase power is pathetic, and her stealth is very slow. If you don't know where you're going, it can be really, really tough. So I would say overall, take the ambush and buff all of the numbers. Make her walking speed when crouch faster, make her crouching speed a little bit faster, make her uncrouching speed faster as well, charge, whatever. Buff the numbers overall a bunch, and you could even make it so that she has a bit of a shred-like power, a bit like Demo or Cannibal or Billy, where if you attack a pallet with your power, it gets stuck. She brings it out, much like Charlotte with her animation, and the pallet breaks. Same speed as usual. There you go. That would make pre-dropping pallets against her less efficient, which is a really good tactic to do against Pig right now, because typically she wants to get on the pallet and then use her power, and it would make her power a bit stronger, a bit more encouraged to use. As a counter to this, I would make the boxes have less chances to kill people. The slowdown from the boxes is okay. You could nerf that a bit if you want. They could reduce the time. But what I think is more problematic is the fact that you can die from the boxes due to RNG. If you have certain add-ons, and we've made videos about this, if you have certain... I'm missing the other one. Well, take my word for it. If you have certain add-ons on Pig and you go to certain maps, survivors have a very realistic chance to literally just die even if they do things perfectly. So it wouldn't be crazy if the timer was the same, but if a survivor is searching a box and their timer ends, they don't die while searching a box. That could be it. That could be it. Just make it so that the survivor that is searching cannot die until they have finished the search. And that alone, I think, would help that kind of playstyle and would make her just as good or better because her chase would be stronger. Bam, that's it. You could also make her ambush be a bit quieter. Maybe the roar could happen later when you charge it up. Some other things like that would also be welcome. But I believe that Pig, for the most part, is in need of those changes. That with some better map balancing and perk balancing, I think she would be completely fine. Next up we have Clown, and Clown is a killer that in many ways is perfect. In many ways the Clown is in such a good spot and he's so good, has a bit of chase power, has a bit of utility with his bottles and his add-ons, but he's not too oppressive and requires skill, and survivors have ways to play around it. The problem, of course, comes from the fact that the maps are sometimes absurdly big. Survivors can have 55-second chances in chase and so on and so forth, and then the Clown can feel really, really bad. So yeah, for the most part, he's fine, but he just has a weak chase and a weak map mobility and a weak map lethality and so on that just make him a bit harsh. So let's see how we could address this a little bit. Number one, it is a bit stupid that you can have this add-on and just camp a guy and literally hold your bottle and there is nothing survivors can do. There's not, other than hope that you miss 4 bottles, because you can have this with that. Other than hope that you miss 4 bottles, there is nothing they can do to unhook safely, other than maybe give you 2 downs and just hope that somehow that's not worse. So Redhead Pinky Finger, after being within 60 meters of the hook for 3 seconds, or 10 meters or 12 meters, whatever, the actual numbers can always be adjusted, it stops working. You no longer insta-down. Everything else is fine. You can still slow them down, you can still interrupt, but you don't insta-down them anymore. There you go. Oh, Otzdarva, but what if survivors run to the hook to avoid being insta-down? well, then you have a free hit and you're camping and chasing someone at the same time. Awesome stuff. It shouldn't be an issue. You do that, this add-on suddenly becomes a lot more bearable while still being powerful and strong. No problem otherwise. Another problem that I have, that I'm sure you've noticed, is that people just, new players in particular, and even seasoned players are allergic to yellow bottles. No one uses yellow bottles. I only see very, very good clowns use them, and even then they use them sparingly. I think that you could make some changes to make yellow bottles just as good for seasoned players, but a little bit easier for newer players. They could turn yellow half a second or a third of a second faster. Right now, when you toss a yellow bottle, it needs to turn for a second before you can immediately use the speed up, which is okay. That's fine. That's good. It could just do it a bit sooner, just a bit sooner, and beginners would use it a bit better. And if on top of that, they give you an invigorated effect that makes you break pallets 10-15% faster, which is nothing crazy, or recover from stuns 10-15% quicker, or stuff like that, or pick up animation 15% quicker. Those things, those small things would actually get people to use yellow bottles and would unleash some of the potential on Clown. That and some map changes and Clown would be a force to be reckoned with. I also think it wouldn't be crazy. I don't know, this is a bit more of a, oof, could we actually do this? I'm not so sure about this. It wouldn't be crazy if a direct hit from a bottle gave you the Doctor Shock pacified effect. So if you directly hit a survivor with a bottle from very close up, they can't vault, they can't drop a pallet, they can't do anything for the next half second, let's say. How about that? Just to encourage him to get close and really hit you with his bottles. That could be cute, and I think it would be nice to try, but maybe there is a reason why that's a horrible idea that I'm not seeing yet. So I'm not super sure about that. All right, so Spirit received a lot of changes in a recent patch that made her a lot better and a lot more counterable and less RNG and less guesswork. That's awesome. The major problem that was introduced with that is that some of her stupid add-ons are now even more stupid. She has new stupid add-ons that are too strong and new add-ons that are so bad that it hurts. Let's go over some of them. The Mother-Daughter Ring has a downside that is not even a downside, because you can still see scratch marks that were left before you started your power, and you move so fast it doesn't even matter. I've also heard, and I have it on good authority, that this add-on is bugged and the multiplier applies in a way that's not intended, so you're actually faster than intended. If that's the case, they should rework that, and they should give it a different effect or a different downside, or I don't know. This add-on is stupid. It's so good. And it's real difficult for survivors to even know it's there until they've been hit super fast. Something needs to be done to this add-on. Wouldn't be crazy if it just got completely reworked. This add-on's not that great. Doesn't need to be an Eerie. It could be something else. Yakuyoki Amulet, funnily enough, has the same issue as the other duration. I told Behavior this a long time ago, but duration add-ons give better recovery than recovery add-ons. This duration add-on gives similar recovery to this recovery add-on. How crazy is that? They just didn't listen. Make duration not increase recovery. There you go. They should do that. Then there's add-ons like the Mother's Glasses, which is pathetic. No one runs back to the husk. Like the Senko Hanabi, which is also super weak. They could buff these add-ons and chase them significantly. I don't know exactly into what. They're really bad. The gimmicky add-ons like the Wakizashi Shaya, nobody uses. This could use some tweaks. And another idea is that her passive facing should not be on at all times. Her passive facing maybe should only happen while she is recovering her power. That way survivors could look at her, and if they see her phase and disappear halfway on, they could know that her power's not ready yet. And when she doesn't phase anymore, they know that her power's ready to go. That could be a nice way to give survivors information and reduce a bit of RNG in chase, right? So that's an idea. But for the most part, other than that, she's okay. In fact, she's quite strong. Next up, Legion. Honestly, I think the changes they did to Legion in the latest overhaul were mostly okay. Legion is now good at injuring, has more reasonable cooldowns, has a bit of information, but not too much, and has even the threat of 5th hit downing someone. So, and also, this I like very much, some add-ons, such as the Broken pin, encourage survivors to not self-mend, but rather to mend each other, which groups them up, which is good for Legion. I think overall Legion is in a really nice spot, some items and maps aside. That being said, some of these add-ons are weird, and they could use changes. For instance, in my opinion, it makes no sense that these really good add-ons are brown. I know that they want to keep some brown add-ons accessible, so maybe that's fine. But yeah, so some add-ons are clearly better than others. Let's have a look at Frank's Mixtape, for instance. Frank's Mixtape lets you kick gens faster and walls faster while you use your power. This is such a horrible thing. You do this so infrequently. They could rework this, or they could make it a yellow and then bring Julie's up to purple, which seems to be a bit more in line. They could do some rarity swaps with these add-ons, or change their effects a little bit. And I think the killer would make a bit more sense. Overall, though, he's pretty good. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that vaulting is not very smooth at all. There is like a hiccup that wasn't there always. And there's also many times when you vault and you don't even see the survivors. And that little bit of jank is a bit annoying. They could also maybe put some work in making Legion feel a bit smoother than that. Overall, though, I think Legion's in an okay spot. Yeah. I don't think the map issues and stuff like that need him to be stronger than he is right now. Next up, Plague. Plague up there with Huntress in being a very solid killer that has strengths, weaknesses, a bit of RNG in her pools. Okay, we'll talk about that. But for the most part, really solid killer, really awesome. From Brown to Erie's add-ons are good. She's pretty great, honestly. And most of the changes that I will suggest just address RNG and just quality of life. Big maps are obviously annoying, and it really sucks that some maps have fountains that spawn in the most obnoxious way. Go play Grim Pantry, and you can get a fountain in a corner behind main building that is completely awful. And if you get that fountain as your only fountain, that sucks. There could be some kind of method. I don't know if they developed this this technology and they have it somewhere to figure out which fountain spots are near the middle, and those should be prioritized when you only get one fountain. That would solve so much with her. Other than that, I'm very happy with the way she is, and some minor quality of life changes. When you pick up your power, the whisper sounds are awfully loud. No one enjoys that. Another thing that I also think is extremely weird is the fact that you can hit survivors twice, and the second hit does not damage them. I have hit so you can go in a private game right now and have your friend stand still, and you hit them with your red puke. You puke on them and then do it again immediately. And it will look like you missed, but you didn't. The iframes on survivors are weird, and they don't give good feedback. I think this is strange. I don't think there's any other killer that can literally attack you and go right through you and not damage you. I don't think there's any other killer. So either reduce her cooldown, which I don't think they need to. Either change it so that the visuals match what's happening, or let you actually hit survivors twice. I think that's normal and reasonable. And another thing that's even more annoying is the phantom hits. There are a lot of situations where in your screen you hit a survivor and they go and then they're not infected. And presumably this happens because of the dedicated servers. In your screen you hit them, in their screen you didn't hit them. But sometimes you can even see someone else. Like sometimes it can happen to other people. It's very strange. It's very strange. In my opinion, if the killer was close enough to hit you, at least with the green puke, you should get infected. It is one of the most frustrating things ever. And I don't think any other killer has issues like this, where I think it does happen to Trickster a bit, but still, yeah, please change that. That is super annoying. If you see someone cough, please make them infected. If not, at least don't make them cough so that we don't get annoyed just saying that. Next up, Ghostface. Honestly, I also think they did a good job with the Ghostface rework for the most part. Yes, playing Ghostface feels pretty awful sometimes, but mostly it has to do with the fact that the maps are terrible and so on, or that the reveal mechanics are janky, and that's not really balanced. That's not something I can just tell you, oh, just fix this. It's not so simple. So hopefully that continues to get better. I think that other than some silly add-ons and some rarity swaps and so on, His add-ons are mostly okay. His base kit is mostly okay. I would honestly not worry too much. If you want to make him a bit more terrifying, you could make survivors hindered by 3% when they're marked, so that they have a bit more pressure. There's some changes you could do. Personally, I don't think he needs many. The issues with leaning and being revealed though are annoying. Before dedicated servers were in DBD, you could lean on trees and lean on obstacles really quickly and super smoothly, but leaning in the game right now is dedicated. It's server based. So when you go to a tree or a wall and you try to lean, the server needs to decide whether or not you can lean. Not your game, not your machine, but the server. And sometimes you start leaning and then it cancels, and then you start leaning again and you've lost a third of a second worth of stock. That thing is super heckin' annoying. They should revert it if it's possible. And also the whole reveal thing, I also know people still complain. It wouldn't be bad if we still had some kind of like, you know, changes over the weeks and months to make it as consistent as possible. And that's it. I think Ghostface is in a decent spot for the most part. Oh, and I just readied up for a match. No, thank you. Next up, Demo. Demo also in many ways is a really, really good base kit killer that has a bit of mobility, a bit of detection, a bit of chase, a bit of pallet breaking and utility. It's pretty great. His base kit is pretty great. And most of the issues, again, are issues of the game that he deals with, right? One thing that I also really despise is how many of the modern buildings like Ormond or House in Garden of Joy, they have invisible walls that don't allow him to shred over distance. That is super unfair, super inconsistent, and super anti-fun. Remove those. And then his other major issues are his add-ons. This killer's add-ons are much better than they used to be after the rework, but still really strange. Check this out, for instance. This is a green add-on that increases your stealth by half a second. Half a second, and it's green. And then the next upgrade add-on increases your stealth by 3 seconds, and it's purple. What? So this add-on does 6 times what this add-on does, and it's just 1 rarity higher? What is this? And then this add-on does what this add-on does, but more than twice. Yeah, some of these add-ons are weird. Some of them could be base kit. Some of them could be rarity swapped. The unknown egg, for example, is pathetic. You almost never teleport and teleport back. They could make the base kit teleporting speed a little bit quicker and then rework the speed ones. I have no idea. This add-on would be so decent without the downside. Like, I don't know why some of these add-ons do what they do. So yeah, minor complaints there, but for the most part, he's okay. He does have some very decent brown add-ons. They nerfed the Barb's glasses. They made this 20%, and they realized, oops, that's actually gonna be his best add-on. And then they nerfed it instead of just making it a purple or making it a green. I don't know. It's a bit strange, his add-on situation. But if you tweaked it a little bit, I reckon he would be fine. And for the most part, Funkiller perfectly good as he is. Next up, Oni. Oni's also, I think, a perfectly good killer. He's got weaknesses and strengths that we all understand very well. Oh my god, his hair looks so bad in low quality. I'm so sorry. You should never see that. Yeah, let me fix that a bit. Yeah. That's a lot better, isn't it? I apologize for showing you that. Right, Oni for the most part is pretty good. Obviously, some maps, some items, some stupid situations. You can never even get your first hit and it can be frustrating. But that's okay. If they change the maps and, you know, stuff like that is mostly stuff of the game, not Oni himself. In many ways, he's really, really good. I will go even as far as to say that some of his unintended mechanics are great. Oni can do flicks and little tricks to change his speed, and I think all of them are awesome. Please don't remove those. I think they're great. If anything, make it easier for consoles players to do them. So yeah, that's great. Problem. Oni right now, and especially in the future, when survivors can pick themselves up from the ground in an upcoming update, is encouraged to slug people. When you get your power, after hitting people and so on, you lose part of it when you down people. And you lose it, you reset it when you pick up a survivor. When you hook a survivor, you get 2 blood orbs. So it's not really efficient. Sometimes it's best to down a guy, then down another guy, and then go pick up one of them up. And I think that this is okay, but it shouldn't be as encouraged. If you hook a survivor and there are no other survivors on the ground, you should get more blood orbs. There. Or maybe if you down a survivor and you pick them up immediately, you do not lose blood. Right now, if a survivor goes into a locker and you grab them, you don't lose blood. But if you down them with your power, you do lose a percentage of your power. Why? That's a bit strange. I understand that he shouldn't be encouraged to slug. That's why he loses his power. But they should make the economy a bit more geared towards hooking rather than slugging than it is right now. Also, for the most part, from purple to yellow, his add-ons are okay-ish. You have the extra blood orbs, which are great, speed add-ons, which are great. Scalp top knob was nerfed, but still good. Let's not talk about that one. Wooden mask, increased duration, really good. I don't like the fact that the increased duration add-ons also increase the percentage or decrease the actual power that you lose. I'm going to explain this super quickly, okay? Go to the add-on video if you want to know more. But basically, when you use these add-ons and you down a survivor, you lose less of a percentage. Because your total is higher, you lose less of a percentage of your power by having extra duration. Which means that these add-ons actually do help you slug and leave people on the ground more and help you keep more of your power. That's weird. That's weird. Shouldn't that be fixed? Maybe make that smaller. Yeah, I don't know. That seems a bit strange because these add-ons, which are supposed to help you not lose your power when you down people, these add-ons are worse than the duration add-ons, which basically do the same thing. So with this Yamaoka Sashimono, you have the effect of 2 of these if you get 1 down, you know? So yeah, some aspects of these add-ons could be tweaked a bit, but for the most part, he's okay. Also, some of his brown add-ons are really strange. They could merge them together. The passive charge, it's so bad. It's so bad. Yeah, they could buff or merge some of these add-ons. Next up, Slinger. Honestly, I don't think Slinger's that bad. Some big maps and horrible things aside, Slinger's pretty good the way he is right now. His old terror radius, I agree, was a bit problematic. His new terror radius, however, is way too fucking big. Sorry, I used the bad word. It's way too heckin' big, and it could honestly use a small reduction. I don't know why the devs are allergic to having 28 meter terror radius, but it feels like this killer could really use it. You do that, and also make some of his brown cooldowns, which are a bit redundant right now, make them base kit. His reload base kit is kind of slow. It could have the 0.25. His miss is kind of big. It could have the 0.25. His reeling speed could have that extra 5%. Make these add-ons do something else and make this base kit. Swap some of the rarities. For example, Rusted Spike could be a green. A reload, I guess, could stay, I suppose. Yeah, sure. If you don't want to make it partially base kit. Some of his other add-ons, like Jaw Smasher, are really bad. The Hellshire Iron is pretty bad for an Eerie. Then the Coin is pretty good. Some of his add-ons could change a little bit, and it wouldn't be the biggest deal in the world. Yeah. And that would be it. He would be in a pretty good spot. I also don't like the fact that you have to reload after hooking people. To help him save a bit of time, why don't you just automatically reload when you hook a survivor? That would be nice. That could be a brown add-on or even base kit. Just to help him save a bit of time and get him into the next chase without making him stronger in chase than he already is. Some tricks like that, I think he would be mostly fine. Next up is Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head's add-ons are so bad that I would literally need to make a video essay to explain it. These add-on that increases instinct does nothing because people don't step on your trails randomly, and if they do, they're in front of you, you don't need it. This add-on to make them hemorrhagic, it's pretty meh. This add-on to make them oblivious is pretty meh. This add-on to make yourself undetectable doesn't even work properly. You need to stay on it for several seconds. It's awful. This add-on goes against the common strategy. Extra killer instinct. Are you serious? Like, these add-ons are awful. For example, this one makes your recovery better, but much like Spirit, these other add-on makes you recover better anyway. Because this power makes your power last longer, your charge per second gives you more power. So this add-on, which is not recovery, is a better recovery than the actual recovery add-on. It's a mess. It's a mess. Honestly, just change literally 80% of these add-ons. The only ones that can stay are the extra power range and maybe the extra right duration. Those are fine. For the most part, every other add-on, nuke it to the ground and start over. And that would help a lot. Another thing that I don't like, his power encourages tunneling a lot. I think that if someone gets uncaged and you're nearby, if you're not across the map, you shouldn't get any notification so that you're not encouraged to go there and tunnel them. If you're far away, yeah, you get a notification so you know more or less where it took place. And another thing that really pains me when I play Pyramid Head is the fact that he's so clunky. When this killer came out, you could drag your sword very, very smoothly, right? And then come out of it, and it was a good idea to just go around the map and then put your trail in places. Right now, it feels awful. The cooldowns are terrible. They had a bug where you could M1 out of it that honestly could stay. If you could drag your sword and hit out of it without a launch, that could totally have stayed. But they took that away, and they made his power super clunky. The power should not feel like an actual hindrance to drag it. They could do what they did to Plague. The Plague felt exactly the same. And they buffer numbers so that even though you have a cooldown, you don't feel so slow, and that helped. So they could do the same for him, and I think he'd be fine. He's a strong killer. With some cute add-ons, he would be awesome. Now Blight has a bit of the nurse syndrome in that he has an extremely strong power. It doesn't break the rules of the game as much as nurse, mind you, but he is so fast and so versatile that he makes even big maps a joke. And with add-ons, this speed and this versatility just spikes the hell up. I will say that some of his best add-ons need to be either reworked, nerfed, or added conditions. Also, by the way, some of his worst add-ons could also help them. The placebo tablet is a meme add-on, whatever. This one's okay. But this add-on, it doesn't help anyone. It's super annoying. This add-on is also super annoying. It doesn't help anyone. They could rework some of these low rarity add-ons as well. And then for the strong add-ons, the Compound 33, which lets him do everything, should have a massive downside. I'm thinking you can break pallets, but your rush never downs survivors. So that means that if you hit a survivor with your power, they're injured. And if they're injured and you hit them, it's like Legion. They just get deep wound. They never go down. That means that if you use Compound 33, your first hit is Blight, but your second hit is like Legion. And that would be fair. Make Compound 33 have a downside like that. The Iridescent tag is also a little bit awful because it's so strong and it can instant on people, but I think this add-on is actually really hard to use, so I don't have a problem with it. It could stay as it is. The Alchemist Ring is stupid. It's a really, really powerful add-on. They could just nerf its numbers, give you half the rushes instead of all of them or something. I think it's really, really stupid. This add-on's way too strong. And then we have the speed add-ons, which are also ridiculous. They give you speed, and the speed stacks, and this speed also stacks on itself the more rushes you do, and these are basically some of his best add-ons. I don't know, either remove them or make it so that when you use one of these add-ons, your second rush doesn't damage. You need to, you know how the Blight does one rush and the first rush doesn't damage? It's like a normal rush, not a lethal. If you use a Crow, your first two rushes don't damage and you need to use the third. So yes, you have speed, you have mobility, but you don't have immediate hit. And if you use them both, these effects stack. So now you need to do 3 rushes and you can only damage on the 4th instead of on the 2nd, which you can right now. And that would make them good, but risky and difficult, and obviously a bad idea if you pair them together. I know that sounds crazy, so maybe just rework them into something else. But yeah, some of these items are stupid. Adrenaline Vial is also really, really strong. Compound 31 is also really, really strong. They could move these to purples and downgrade the Summoning Stone and the Soul Chemical down to greens, and that would make a bit more sense. Most of these other add-ons are okay, but yeah, those add-ons need to go. And then Blight would be okay. I also think that he should have the same treatment as Nurse. If you stun him with Head-On, Pallets, or Decisive, he should lose his rush tokens. If you're a beginner, that's not a big deal, because you don't use your power too much. But if you're an advanced Blight, that actually gives risk. You can't just tunnel a guy out of hook, eat a DS, and then bump once and catch him 3 seconds later. You also cannot just eat through every pallet and get stunned and don't give an F. You actually have to be careful, and survivors that manage to stun you actually get something, where now you're a normal killer for a little while, which is not that big of a deal. So I think that would be a nice thing. Another thing is that I find this a bit weird. When you are about to run out of your power, it's always a good idea to hit. Because your cooldown is the same and you make a bit of distance, you sometimes see good Blight players, they rush into the open and they hit at the end just to get more distance. Legion players can also do this. I think that this should not be a thing. Like, isn't it a bit weird that Nurse gets slowed down more if she misses and Blight doesn't? Make him be a little bit slower in recovery if he does a swing at the end. And that would reduce the need to do that. And it would also give a bit more space if survivors manage to actually juke you in chase so that they get a bit more distant. Bam, tiny nerf. And yeah, this is more for beginners. Some maps have very unintuitive collisions, like some trees that are slippery that don't look slippery, and these could be improved overall, just to make learning Blight less of a pain, which it can be right now. Next up is Twins. The problem with Twins is that when they came out, they had nice cooldowns and survivors did not have a lot of methods to heal fast. In fact, if you had the spinning top and their items were being dropped, if they didn't have medkits, it was very hard for teams to heal. And when they're all injured, you could go on a little Victor rampage and go down, 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 down. And it was really strong, really powerful. So, two things happened since. The cooldown on Victor is now atrociously long. After you down a survivor, you have to wait like 7 or 8 seconds before you move at normal speed with Charlotte. And now survivors have medkits, but also Circle of Healing and other perks to heal very, very, very fast, which is awful against Twins. So part of these problems are the game, and part of them are Twins themselves. I do think that if you down a survivor and you want to actually hook them, you shouldn't be punished as much as you are right now with a 7-second cooldown. So when you down a survivor, in my opinion, you should have a prompt to stay or to teleport back. If you press to teleport back, then Victor doesn't have any cooldown, or he has a cooldown but you don't see it, and you immediately go back to Charlotte. And that would make it so that if you slug, they are a bit sluggish and slow, but if you don't and you want to go for the hook, it's very fast. And Charlotte could honestly be a bit faster when she picks herself up. Another strategy that is really sad is that for survivors right now, it is actually a really good idea to hold Victor hostage. When you grab a healthy survivor, they will run away from their teammates and just hold them so that you don't have a power for 30 seconds. Now, there are a lot of add-ons, such as the Sewer Sludge to make them remove Victor slower, and the Weighty Rattle to make them broken when they crush him, or the Hemorrhage, which makes them bleed and have the status effect when they crush him. But the problem is that survivors do not crush him. They wait for you to call him back. And if you call him back, this add-on does nothing, this add-on does nothing, this add-on does nothing, and this add-on also does nothing. So these add-ons should work when you recall Victor as well. And if anything, survivors should be punished by getting a deep wound or something if they hold Victor for the maximum duration of 30 seconds and you recall him. So recalling Victor should apply these add-ons and have a massive or a significant downside for survivors. They would want to get rid of it and not wait 30 seconds every single time. So yeah, this add-on, if you don't see it, is the blindness one. That would really, really help. Another thing that's kind of annoying is just how sluggish they are, but also how fast they can be. Sometimes the twin sends out Victor, they attack a person, Victor gets kicked out, and then the twins send out Victor immediately again. After all of these buffs that we talked about, we could also make it so that if Victor gets kicked, his recovery takes an extra 4 to 5 seconds. There you go, not a big deal. And also another thing that makes zero sense right now is how Victor interacts around hooks. If you have a survivor on the hook and you try to use Victor, the game is like, nope, no, you can't teleport to Victor and you cannot have Victor come out right now. You are close to the hook, that is not good. However, If you have Victor near a hook and then you hook, then he's fine. Then you can totally work. And it doesn't make any sense. Why is one okay and the other one not okay? In my opinion, if you hook and Victor is nearby, Victor immediately should disintegrate and reappear on your chest. That would make it less sluggish, or at least give you the option to do that. Some things like this could go into the rework, which we know they've said is coming at some point. So yeah, hopefully that happens. Next up is the Trickster. And we know that at higher MMR, Trickster performs quite okay, but we also seen data that suggests that he's really hard to play. And part of it is just that he's difficult to play on console. Honestly, I wouldn't be upset if he's a little bit easier on console, if they reduce some of the accumulating knockback of each knife. I wouldn't mind some changes that help console mostly. That would be fine. I also think that one of the major changes that makes him really bad in keeping up with survivors is the reloads. Some maps have no good lockers in the middle or in certain areas, and reloading with this killer feels almost more of a chore than with Huntress. It is awful. It is really awful. They could totally make this add-on way stronger. They could make this base kit and then make the add-on, make it even faster, so that people don't feel like they need to have Iron Maiden, and maybe make Iron Maiden not affected. I don't know. Yeah, it feels a bit bad. If his reload was Iron Maiden by default, I don't think it would be that big of a deal at all. Another thing that could be a default is the yellow cage heart shoes. If you don't know, there's two add-ons like this, okay? One of them is this killing parkours and it's 1%. Okay, not too bad. But this one is 2.5%. This is the kind of add-on that in theory seems really bad. Because, you throw knives for a little bit, okay. But what's the big deal with being a bit faster while you throw knives? This add-on is incredible. This add-on is easily one of his best add-ons, and every good trickster that you know probably likes to use this add-on and uses it often. And the reason is because when you chase survivors in their strongest structures, shack, long wall jungle gyms with high, tall walls, you cannot throw flurries of knives. You need to go one knife, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And these, every time you throw one of these knives, you slow yourself down, bam, a lot. And you need to climb back from that. But with this, that slowdown is just less severe, and you keep up with survivors a lot more, and you end up throwing a lot more knives, and you end up throwing knives that are before they make it around corners. This is so good. I think it should be his base kit, and it should be his normal, and it would help him it wouldn't help him in the open, where he's already, doesn't really care so much about the little slowdown. It would help him so much, so much when he throws little knives here and there in these already tough structures. So they could make this base kit, and I think people would appreciate it. The thing about main event is that it's a really dangerous power. Main event charges up when you've down about 3 survivors. You suddenly start to throw a million infinite knives for a good 10 seconds. And is it 10 seconds? I think it is 10 seconds default, yeah. Hopefully I'm not wrong. And yeah, you can down easily survivors with this. But also, sometimes you get it when you don't need it. And there is a problem. If you make this power infinitely holdable, then people will just camp. And I believe, for the record, that if you injure a survivor unhooking, they should not be reset in the animation. Because right now, Trickster is extremely good at camping. Arguably in between Cannibal and Huntress in how good he is, especially with some add-ons. So that should not be a thing. But they could make it not related to a timer, but rather related to distance. So if you're within, let's say, 60 meters of a hook, you cannot get to use your main event. And when the hook has stopped because they're unhooked, or you have left 1, 2, 3 seconds, bam, you get it back. That way you could use main event in chase, kind of like Myers can use his tier 3 in chase, but you wouldn't be able to just camp with it. And maybe that would be good. I don't know. Maybe that would be good. Maybe. I don't know. I think it would be good. I don't see a reason why that's exploitable. It would feel kind of bad if you are chased by him right now, and your teammates fed him. But I mean, that happens to a lot of other killers too, and I don't think it should be a massive issue. At least make his timer bigger, and that would help a little bit, because lots of times main event feels so hard to use. Next up is it's Nemesis. Nemesis, he does have a lot of core issues that are not easily saved. Number one is his zombies. like I'll just say it right now. If it was up to me, I would make 5 or 6 or even 20 million zombies spawn at the start of the match. Like to contribute to the feeling of a horde, right? Like make 6 or 5 zombies spawn, and then survivors have to drop pallets to get rid of the zombies, and then the zombies eventually disappear until only 1 or 2 of them keep respawning. That would be awesome. That would give him early game resource depletion. Survivors would need to get rid of pallets. It would give him early game time and pressure. Survivors would be encouraged to use head-on to kill zombies, flashlight to just stall them, and pallets with any means necessary to reset them. So survivors would be encouraged and rewarded for using off-meta stuff, which I think is awesome. But the developers have said that more than 2 zombies, for some reason, makes the processing it's impossible. Like, they can't do it. Like, it just has too much drain on the processing. Not the graphics, but the processing. And some consoles, I guess, cannot handle it, or even PC cannot handle it. So, knowing for a fact that we are never going to get more than 2 zombies, at least make those 2 zombies good. Right now, those 2 zombies are pathetic. Especially in large maps, they patrol areas with no gens, with no survivors, with nothing for minutes. They get stuck in the same spots. Not even like, oh my god, one round. In the same, they get stuck consistently on the same spots for minutes and minutes, or the entire game, until you go and kill them, or a survivor unstucks them. It's terrible. The AI should be smarter. I think we'll make a point about this later. They should find survivors that are infected easier. If you are nearby, especially in chase, as I pointed out, if you are nearby and you're chasing a survivor, that zombie should 100% be looking at that survivor. I have seen so many instances of a zombie in a loop just stuck or looking away from the survivor that I'm chasing, and it's so frustrating. It's like, what are you doing? The survivors that you're chasing should immediately be, detected by the zombies, in my opinion. And also, there should be better fail-safes. If a zombie is stuck in a spot and the game detects that he's not blinded, he's not following anyone, he's just stuck, after 3 or 4 seconds, the zombie immediately dies and immediately respawns in the nearest hook or whatever. Bam! That would make even all of these spots that I mentioned, that would make them so much better. But yeah, we don't have any of that, and it sucks. Another thing that really sucks is that survivors now have even more ways than earlier to take hits. They can have Dead Heart, they can have Off the Record, they can have Adrenaline, they can have Styptics. And on top of all of that, this killer needs to hit survivors 3 times with his tentacle. It feels awful. It feels terrible. The killers overall had a shorter cooldown on their attacks, but Nemesis whip did not have any compensation to catch up with that. Either make the cooldown tentacle shorter, and if you think that is bad because it encourages him to spam his power, then make the hindered bigger. When you hit a survivor for the first time, they make less distance. The devs have told us that in the original iteration of Nemesis, survivors did not get a speed boost from getting hit by the tentacle, and that this felt really, really bad. Okay, well, make something in between no speed boost and massive speed boost that they get right now. If you look at the actual numbers of the hinder that they get and look at add-ons like the Lickitung, you would laugh at how bad they are. So yeah, something in between would be really nice. I also really think, forgive me guys. There we go. I'm just gonna bring it here so I don't need to stare. I also think that infecting survivors is really, really a double-edged sword. You spend a lot of time infecting them, they can very easily get rid of it, and the downsides are not even that bad. I've sometimes myself or seen survivors get infected by a zombie on purpose because they get a speed boost, and if I hit them, I don't get infection points, or they use the speed boost to actually make it to the exit gate. There is no fear to being infected by this killer, and it's so easy to get rid of them with vaccines. It's pathetic. I really don't like it. We have a great example in Wesker of what infection should be. Infection at the start does nothing, but then eventually becomes really scary. Likewise, I think that a survivor staying infected for a long time and you spreading infection to multiple survivors should 100% have more of a downside. The first one that I can think of, zombies should detect survivors that are infected much further than before. They could even get a speed boost once they are chasing an infected survivor, and infected survivors could have some other minor downside. I don't know what it could be. That way, they would actually want to get rid of the vaccines, and that way you would make add-ons like the recovery coin, like the Eerie Umbrella badge, or like the Plan 43 binds more worth it, which right now can be a complete hit or miss. So yeah. But mind you, these are not the only add-ons that have problems. Many add-ons make 0 sense. The Stars manual, for example, this add-on is completely pathetic, and I'm not even going to try to explain why. You look at it for 2 seconds, you know why this add-on sucks. Number one, you never get hit by zombies, and number two, if you do, you look at the HUD and you see where it is. This is awful. These add-ons need some tweaks, some ride swaps, and some straight up number buffs. The Tyrant Gore, the Virus Sample, and is that it? And the Zombie Heart. All of them increase the power that you gain from destroying a zombie. But guess what? None of them increase it enough to make it worth it. All of these, if you have these add-ons and you kill 3 zombies and you have these and you don't have them, you kill the zombies, you basically get the same results. It's so sad. It's also crazy that they nerfed Marvin's Blood when they should have just made it a purple add-on. I don't know. Some people have also suggested that once Nemesis is in tier 3, his tentacle should always injured. Not down if you're not infected, but always injured. And that's not a crazy idea. If you don't give any downside to being infected, at least do that instead. And all of that would make it so that this killer has a bit more oomph at the beginning. The problem with Nemesis right now, other than maps and other stuff, is that at the beginning, if you don't infect people, you don't have a power. And you don't have any slowdown. And if you do infect people, you've wasted too much time. The gens are getting done, and near the end, vaccines, adrenaline, bam, everyone is out. So it would really feel nice if your power was more impactful. Now you're gonna forgive me, guys, because OBS has a little bug that doesn't allow me to show you the next picture. So I need to have a little workaround, and we're gonna move on to Pinhead, aka Cenobite. Cenobite. Let me see. Okay. Perfect. Forgive me. Cenobite, for the most part, is a fine, almost perfect killer. Has a bit of chase power, a bit of information, a little bit of slowdown. It's great. It's wonderful. For the most part, he's really good. Some problems. His power in chase feels very inconsistent. When survivors are caught in the open, yeah, it works more or less okay. When survivors are around obstacles, your chains break very fast and sometimes unpredictably fast, which feels really bad. Some of it can be mitigated by skill and game knowledge. Yes, if you're a really good Pinhead, you know the angles at which you should use your possessed chain so that it doesn't break as easily. Yes, that's a thing. However, even if you know that, sometimes the same two possessed chains will yield completely different results. And it has to do with things like the chains breaking upon impact, the chains breaking if you walk through them yourself. All of these things are really rough. So if you do not have this add-on, the impaling wire, this killer can feel really bad. I wouldn't say make this add-on base kit. What I would suggest is that when a chain meets an obstacle, it doesn't immediately break. It begins to break much faster. So much like, for example, the Deathslinger, when he shoots you and his chain goes through something, it doesn't break right away. It just begins to break very fast. So if you land the chain successfully and the survivor immediately runs through a doorway and all 3 chains are now obstructed, they break very fast, but not immediately. Not immediately. Very fast, but not immediately. And that little bit of difference, I think, would make him so much nicer to play. And less RNG to the point where you're like, okay, I just don't even want to use my power. So that would be really nice. Yeah. Another thing that I find really annoying about this killer is that you cannot use his power in chase very tight around certain structures. If a survivor is on the other side of a pallet or a window and you hit them with a chain, sometimes you like spam the spacebar really hard and you cannot break it or you cannot vault it. There's like this weird 2.5 or 2.4 or 2.3 second wait where you cannot do anything, and it's super annoying. They could remove it or reduce it and he would feel a lot better to use a chain and then immediately be able to do what you need to do. So if you played this killer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of these add-ons are also a little bit awful, not gonna lie. The Frank's Heart is okay, but why does it exist alongside the flickering television? Just put them together, make them one add-on, and that's it. Whatever. Why? But why do we have the television? Sorry, not the television. Why do we have this add-on to increase the distance of the chain? That's so... some of these add-ons are so weird. Like, there is almost no situation where this comes into play. You could take some of these add-ons that are redundant, merge them into one add-on, and make it a yellow or a brown add-on, and it would be completely fine. This is also another thing that really bothers me. Why is there an add-on that makes a cooldown by 9%? That is so little. You could make this a brown add-on at 9%, and then make the brown add-on, which is 3%, 0.3. This is so little. It's not, you don't even use it all the time. It's so, it's not like Nurse where you're teleporting all the time and you need even 3%. This is so little. Make this 15 or 20% and make it a green add-on, and then it would be fine. Yeah. The turning add-ons, believe it or not, they are not garbage. They have a bit of interesting facts to them. Merge them together. Where is the other one? Merge them together, right, and make them a single add-on. Yeah, some redundant add-ons could be merged, and some of the add-ons could have the rarity swapped and so on, and it would make sense, and he would be a bit better. It wouldn't also be bad if Slice of Frank had a slight slingering effect, for instance. Yeah, some things like that could be done, and he would feel a bit better. Another thing that is worth mentioning, that is not directly related to just balance, is it's how Pinhead is a bit unfair to console players. Console players, I'm not sure if they can rewind this one. I think they might be able to, but console players in general cannot break chains around pallets because they vault them accidentally. That sucks, man. That sucks. That is awful. Like, I wish they would do that. It also is a bit of a killer that's unfair against solo players, because solo players don't know who's going to pick up the cube, and they cannot coordinate the same way as Swarfen. So it's a killer that is inherently unfair against solos. But I don't think that's the fault of the killer. That's something that the devs should correct by making solos have more information and be on par with Swarfen, or at least close to. So yeah, something worth mentioning. Alright, next up is Artis, and I think Artis... Oh no. There we go. I think Artis is, for the most part, really, really good. Base killer, like, she has a power that is oppressive, but she doesn't get a ton of add-ons that make it unbearable. Overall, I think she's really nice. Can deal with big maps, small maps. Some of the big maps with stacked safe loops are a bit painful for her, but aren't they to everyone? That's just not a fault of hers, more of the map. So yeah, for the most part, she's totally fine. I really love her. I really like her. I don't have many issues with her. One thing that is a little bit annoying, and it's not very intuitive. When you place a bird, like she just did, it actually has less of a cooldown to shoot it than it is to let it die out naturally. I think that's backwards. I don't get that. I made a guide on the 50 Wins Artist video that explains this, if you want to know more, but they should probably make it so that new players understand that if they let the birds die out, they get it faster than if they fire them. So the disintegration speed recovery from idle crows going the whole timer could probably be a bit lowered overall, and that wouldn't be a terrible thing. Like, they could make basically the, what is it called? The automatic drawing, which is a second and a half. They could remove this add-on and just make it base kit if it's from inactivity. So that wouldn't be a crazy thing if that was like base kit. Anyway, yeah, some add-ons are a bit whack. This add-on is not very good. It's very gimmicky. This add-on is not very good. Meanwhile, add-ons like the severed hands, the baby shoes, or the carrion, or even the brown thick tar are so good. Some of these rarities need to be swapped, and some of these effects need to be changed. For instance, the 15-second blindness is not a huge deal. This add-on is a meme add-on that makes the birds objectively worse. They should make it a 0.25 visibility, not 0.5, and make this a brown add-on, so that if people like it, they can run it, but it's a brown meme add-on and gives you extra BP or something, so people know that it's not a good add-on. And other than some minor, I don't know, adjustments like that, I think she's fine. And maybe you guys have issues with her that I haven't identified, but for the most part, I like her. I think she's pretty neat. Next up is Onryo. And as you will see, I couldn't even, like, I needed more than 4 lines to talk about everything that's wrong with this killer. I think this killer is in a really bad spot. Unlike the stats that we discussed the other day, I don't think she's good. I don't think she's strong. I don't think she's healthy for the game. Number 1, take the Reiko Watch, which makes her more invisible when demanifested, and take the all newspaper, remove these add-ons, and make them base kit. These add-ons make her have a period of invisibility that can actually be used as a skill by experienced Sadako players to catch survivors off guard and to hide mid-chase and to actually surprise people. And it's surprisingly nice. I think these could be base kit so that she has some help in chase. Maybe she could also have a tiny speed boost when she then manifests manually. Or even a bloody fingernail speed boost when she comes out of a TV base kit as well. At least make 25% this add-on and make it 25% of this add-on, like half of it base kit. That wouldn't be bad. Another thing that I really don't like is how you need to teleport everywhere to build up Condemn. And survivors, if they pick up a tape, they get Condemn +1 and then they start gaining it. Survivors do not want to touch TBs. They just don't want to. They have no good reason to, unless you really force them to. So in my opinion, every time you hook a survivor, you should be encouraged to hook and not to slug them. Every time you hook a survivor, every other survivor that doesn't have a tape, +1 condemned. Maybe if they're next to an active television, +2 condemned. F you. Go pick up that tape, you lazy bastard. So yes, make survivors want to remove tapes. Another thing that's really annoying is that when a survivor removes a TB tape, the TB goes off for 1 minute, 60 seconds. And when you teleport, it goes off for 100 seconds. This is backwards. It's basically better for survivors to just not touch the tapes because the cooldown is better if you just teleport there. This should be swapped probably and reduced so that survivors actually want to remove the tapes to prevent you from teleporting. And if you teleport, you don't get punished for 100 seconds. That is insane. Right now, the only way to address this basically is these add-ons that decrease it by a few seconds, like 6 seconds. This one's useless. Or 12 seconds. This one's... So yeah, you can keep these add-ons, maybe lower their numbers and lower the base kit numbers. And what else am I talking about? Yeah, hopefully that's it. The only add-on that massively changes this is the iridescent tape. Yeah, obviously with this tape, then yeah, you get every TB back, and it's super powerful. They could just nerf this one to make up for the other changes. So obviously with that add-on, you don't have that powerful effect, but without that add-on, it really feels bad. Another thing that feels really bad is that survivors, when they pick up a TB, they kind of expose themselves. You see it on the HUD. You can even tell which TB just turned off, and then you can harass that survivor. And there's nothing they can do. If they have Save Best for Last, the killer, and you need to put a TB tape, you can't do it. And it feels awful that in order for you to avoid condemn, which rarely happens, you have to condemn yourself, and then you put yourself in danger, and that's how you die. Survivors should have 2 TBs to put the tape into so that the killer cannot just camp 1, and it's easier to get rid of it, and survivors actually have a reason to do it. And obviously, after doing all of that, you will need to adjust some of the add-ons to make up for some of these changes. That, I think, would make the whole Condemn less oppressive if you focus on it, but more normalized when you play normally. And yeah, I don't know exactly what other changes we need to follow, but I think that would be a good start. And another thing that I really dislike about Sadako is that at the start of the game, she cannot use her power. The TBs are all turned off, but even if survivors don't see the TBs physically, they see a black outline on their HUD, which tells them, hey, it's a Sadako, oops. It would be nice if that did not appear for the first 40 seconds of the match until the TVs actually turn on, which is, I think, 40 seconds. So yeah, make the black outline only appear after, and then she has a bit more chance to be stealthy, get a first hit in, which would be super good for her. Next up is Dredge Boyo. Actually, really good killer. Really good killer. Most of the issues that come with Dredge are annoying medkits, annoying perks, annoying maps, which are not really his fault. The only thing that maybe is a bit his fault that is related to maps is locker placement. Some maps have awful locker placements. They could make a better job to make killers like Trickster, Dredge, Huntress, maybe Trapper after that change was suggested better. So yeah, most of these issues are not related to him. He's pretty good, generally pretty good, well-balanced killer. I do think, however, that some of the add-on effects are strong and should be partially base kit. When a survivor locks a locker, and if there's two of them together, they only need to lock one and you always come out of that one, they slow you down for a very long time. It takes no seconds at all for them to do it, but it slows you down a lot. And this yellow add-on, mind you, yellow add-on makes you come out 1 entire second sooner. What? What? Hello? Are we crazy? 1 whole second sooner for a yellow add-on? This add-on is way too good. But instead of nerfing it, like sometimes Behavior does, they should take half of that add-on, half a second, and make that base kit. So this add-on is only half a second, but without this add-on, you're already a half a second faster than without. Because coming out of a locker that's locked without this add-on feels absolutely horrible. Okay. We then have 3 add-ons that increase the points that you get for doing things towards nighttime. They are the Wooden Plank, the Malthinker's Call, and the Fallen Shingle. The Fallen Shingle is a bit strange. I think this one should be a brown. Yeah, this one should be a brown. The Wooden Plank should be a yellow and be a bit stronger, because you don't hook people that often. I guess the burn letters can stay the way they are, but the Malthinker's Skull is super strong. This add-on is super good. Super. For a yellow, it's way better than the others. It makes your nightfall happen much sooner if you keep 1 or 2 people injured, let alone all of them, then the nightfall comes in seconds. It's super fast. So make this add-on probably a green, and instead maybe take this Destroyed Pillow, which is not too good, make it a yellow. So swap some of the rarities around, and that could work out all right. I'm not a big fan of Viserys, but whatever. It's all good. They don't, not every killer needs to have like perfect guidance all around, but that would help a little bit. Yes. Another thing that I also find annoying, and maybe this is a bit controversial, if 2 lockers are next to each other and the survivors only lock one, the killer should come out of the other one. I think it's weird that survivors can lock a locker, you come out of it, then they can go lock the other one, and then you come out of the other one. Come on, dude. If there's 2 lockers, let's treat it as one, force them to lock both of them, and then you only need to break them once. It makes it a bit more meaningful. Their time is way less valuable than yours, because you are 1 killer, they are 4 survivors. They can always beat you at locking lockers, no matter what. So yeah, that'll be nice. Another thing that I don't like too much, that it's a bit of a bug, is when you teleport to your remnant, which is the little shadow you leave behind, sometimes there's a bug that makes you go, ugh, like if you fail for something, or something. And it slows you down a lot. It happens very rarely. I don't understand why, but when it happens, it's a complete killer of your momentum in movement. So please fix that. And also maybe make it so that when you teleport, you immediately have collision. I've heard that when you teleport, you don't have collision, and survivors can get through you, and it's so annoying. I've seen it happen. I don't know, like Hack, when she teleports, she immediately has collision. So I don't know why she gets to do that and Dredge doesn't. Maybe there's a good reason for it that I don't understand, but hey, I wouldn't mind if you had collision faster. Overall though, banger of a killer, pretty good. You could tweak some numbers. Overall, I think it's pretty great. Next up. And final, Wesker. Wesker is a fine killer. He is really good. Has a bit of info, has a bit of slowdown, has a bit of chase power, has a bit of utility, and some other things here and there to cover his weaknesses. He's great. He is fantastic. Fun to play as, mostly fun to play against. I love him. His add-ons are not extremely horrible. Like overall, 9 out of 10. Good stuff. A few little nitpicks. There's a bit of a distinction. A bit of a disparity when you grab a survivor and you slam them against the wall, and when you grab a survivor and you throw them against the wall and they go down, presumably. And the thing is, throwing them is better. If you grab a survivor and you throw them, the moment they leave your hand, you immediately get your power back. So you can throw them against the wall, pick them up, hook them, and then you go and use your power from ability. How many times, however, has it happened to you that you grab a survivor, you smash them against the wall, you grab them, you hook them, and then you try to use your power and you only have 1 charge? That is because when you smash them, your power starts charging much later for some reason. It would be nice if when you grab a survivor, you start getting your power sooner, so that there's no difference between the two. Small change would help a bit. Don't you think it's annoying that you hook a survivor and your power is still coming back? Not even Nurse or Blight have that problem. Another thing that's a bit annoying, especially if you're using the add-on egg to make you have a longer period between two dashes is that you cannot cancel your dashing period. Sometimes you use one dash and you're like, okay, I'm done, I want to stop. But the game makes you wait like there, and then you go through cooldown. It would be nice if you could press the left control or the active ability button to cancel that. To be like, okay, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore. That could be a nice ability that would give him a bit more flexibility and wouldn't punish you for using this add-on. I don't know, it would be a nice feature. And another thing that I don't like too much about Wesker is that he has a really nice ability to guarantee tunneling people. And I think this is one of his biggest strengths. If you grab a survivor and you put them into the virus state, and then you hook them, and then they disappear, in a big map, maybe they get away with it. But in a small map, and all maps should be a bit smaller, honestly, that survivor, if they use a spray on them, they will give you a killer instinct, which is basically telling you, hey, there he is, go tunnel him. That's kind of bad. I think it would be nice if a survivor uses a spray on someone else that does not give killer instinct. It doesn't give you the heartbeat. This would tell you two things. Number one, these survivors want to avoid being detected and want to avoid being tunneled. And now there's two of them somewhere. I don't know where. Maybe if I have the add-on, right? What is it? Maybe if I have the helicopter stick, maybe I can find them. And when I find them, there will be two people. But I can't immediately find them because there's two of them. I think that would encourage survivors to group up and do altruistic things instead of just sitting on gens, and also discourage and give them a way to avoid tunneling. I think that's a nice change. What do you guys think? Other than that, I generally think this killer is awesome. He does have a few situations where he's a bit clunky. Like he will grab someone and let them go, like those buggy thingies. Like obviously nobody enjoys that, but at the end of the day, that's not really a feature. It's something that I guess they're getting better at. So I wouldn't really mind. There's also, for example, a little exploit where a survivor can let you vault a pallet and then wait a certain amount of time and then go into you and then go through the pallet and there's nothing you can do. I think that should also be ironed out. If they iron out these little quirky things, I think this killer is in a really good spot. And overall, 1 hour and 36 minutes later, that's my thoughts on all the killers and the changes. I need to do this again, but forgive me. If you go back, you see that many of them are green, which is a really good thing. I know that if I did this some time ago, half the killers had horrible issues. So this is really, really good news overall. Behavior is doing a good job. And some of the remaining issues are mostly map and items. I know that this is really hard to sometimes grasp, but Dead by Daylight is a good game and it's really close to being so much better with just some changes here and there, man. There is so much potential for all of these killers to be so much closer to each other. And hopefully the devs listen a bit and, and go do all of these things. Yeah, I know they hate it when people ask them to just fix the game, but go fix the game slowly and with love, as you have done before. Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed it. See ya.